Now, before we bring on the next panel, just a friendly announcement for those that may be standing. We have enough seats for people to sit down, so just please be sure to find a seat so we're in compliance with fire code. Thank you. Now, will be just as exciting as Quincy, and also it'll be about gold, taxes, crypto, keys to our personal wealth. The panelists will include Clinton Donnelly of Crypto Tax Audit, Jake Claver of Digital Family Office, and a few more projects. Reaper Financial, we've got Patrick O'Reilly of Reaper Financial, Jason Cousins of GlintPay, and the panel will be moderated by the most wonderful woman in crypto, Linda P. Jones of Be Wealthy and Smart VIP Experiences. Yay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. We're so excited to be here. This panel, the idea is to help people who are maybe blessed with sudden wealth. Do you know anyone in the room who might be blessed with sudden wealth someday? So we have some experts here who have solutions for you, and we're going to go through and have each one introduce themselves briefly, and then I have some questions for them. So why don't we start with you, Jake?
Yeah, so my name is Jake Claver. I am the director for Digital Ascension Group. We offer digital family office solutions, and we specialize in digital asset liquidity events. So I have all the professionals across the U.S. that specialize in each one of the regards that might be in a family office, whether that's CPAs, tax attorneys, like Clinton here. We have estate planners, wealth managers, financial advisors, funds and foundations, and all of these individuals have a decade or more of experience with traditional finance, but are also proficient with digital assets.
My name is Clinton Donnelly. I'm the CEO of Crypto Tax Audit, and we do three things in general. We calculate crypto gain, we prepare a full tax return for crypto investors, and we also defend people in audits before the IRS. And a real shout out to, I know I'm estimating about 5% of this crowd are customers of mine, so I want to say hi to all of you. Please introduce yourselves. Thank you. We've been doing crypto taxes since 2018. I would say at this point in time, we're the largest firm in the US that actually does crypto tax return preparation exclusively. Most of my clients are, I'd characterize as whales, like most of the people in this room. And we have a tremendous track record in terms of tax return preparation and gain calculation. In terms of gain calculation, we've had people with 5 million transactions, 75 wallets, 20 exchanges and blockchains. So nothing's too complicated for my staff. In terms of return preparation, I'd say at this point we've done about 3,300 crypto tax returns. None of them have been audited, which I think testifies to our technique of how to prepare a return that doesn't attract IRS attention. And then finally, we do tax return or audit defense of people. And at this point in time, I've done over 40 defenses of people being audited by the IRS on their crypto reporting. I don't think there's anyone else in the US that's done as many as I have. And I have a 30% refund rate. That means the IRS came after somebody and they ended up paying. So the IRS paid back. So the national average is 0.5%. So we got some tremendous things doing. And the biggest thing our company does now is we now offer a membership service. It's kind of like car insurance for your tax return. If you get selected by the IRS while you're a member, you're selected for an audit of your crypto reporting, we'll defend you at no additional charge. We'll do the legal representation. My staff will recalculate your gains. When the IRS does their gain calculation, I have forensic accountants on staff. We will dissect and destroy the IRS calculation, and we'll defend you right through appeals up to tax court. So, thank you very much. So there's nobody else that's done this service, and I know a lot of you are members. It's fantastic, and we're already starting to get imitators, so I say that's great. So right now I got three cases up in tax court, and I know we have a very strong chance of winning every single one of those for crypto investors. So thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Clinton. Awesome. I'm all about financial education. So many of you know I have the Be Wealthy and Smart podcast. Just finished my 9th anniversary, over 1,100 podcasts now. And 2 books, 1 book on crypto, which I wrote last year, and many of you in the room have read, so thank you for that. Also started the Be Wealthy and Smart VIP experience, which is an online financial education tool where we talk about all things, not just crypto. We talk about stocks and ETFs. We talk about real estate, bonds. We talk about private equity. And it is a virtual experience for people to get up to speed on economics and financial matters and financial investing so that you can maximize your wealth. And so that's my latest endeavor, and I think that financial education is one of the most important things that we're going to be talking about today, but I just encourage everyone to continue your financial knowledge, and you've done that. You're here because you listened to Digital Perspectives and possibly DAI and some others, and kudos to you for getting that financial education in crypto, and I encourage you to expand that to stocks and other things that you're going to be diversifying into as your wealth continues to grow and expand, and so that your wealth can continue to grow and expand. So, good for you.
I'm Patrick O'Reilly. I'm CEO of Reaper Financial, and we are a blockchain suite of services company. We have 3 tokens on the XRP ledger: RPR, ASC, and ARC. Reaper, what we do is burn as a service. So we go out and buy other cryptocurrencies and burn them to the benefit of the users. In 2022, we burned over $337,000 worth of other XRP ledger, XDC, and ERC20 tokens. And thank you. And Ascension, what we've essentially done is created a decentralized, non-custodial index fund where we are able to send out a dozen other XRP ledger tokens to you simply for holding. And with ARC, we've completely redesigned the paradigm of charitable giving. So instead of actually giving up your funds to the charity and getting nothing in return, you simply hold ARC, you vote on a charity that has been highly vetted, and you also earn passive income while that charity gets donations from ARC. So everything we are working on, we want to affect your physical life, and with our main product, we're in beta right now, it's debt reaping. So we are burning debts as though they were a token. And so we want to take all of the system right now that is the financial system and turn it on its head, so that instead of working, you shouldn't have to work to live. You should get to live the rest of your life having stood on the work that you've done, the sweat equity that you have put out. We want that equity to pay into the future, and we want you to be able to borrow against it.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Cousins. I'm the founder and CEO of GILT. So as a former architect, somebody got involved in virtual reality the first time it was cool back in the 90s, and developing e-commerce solutions for a lot of the high street retailers in the UK. 2008 hit, and that was the first banking crisis that I'd experienced in my life. And it was the first time that I realized that a bank is not a risk-free deposit of funds. And as soon as I started thinking about that, and by the way, I was thinking, hang on, why work all your life getting all this sweat equity together only to lose it in a bank? There is no money in the bank. Okay, so how do I store my hard-earned wealth? And whilst I started to think about that, also money itself, why does it depreciate in ways that are outside of my control? And of course I learned about gold. Well, first of all, I learned that the dollar had lost 85% of its purchasing power in my lifetime by that point. The pound and the euro as well. They're all losing everything, as you know. And then I learned that gold was the ultimate store of value. It had been for 3,000 years. It was its purchasing power is maintained over that time, but in my lifetime it had gone up by 500%. But of course I couldn't pop down to the casino down below and bet with my gold. I couldn't buy a beer with it. And I thought, well, why not? Why can't we enable gold, the most secure store of value in the world, to participate in electronic payments? So in my delusional mindset, I decided that I'd set out to do this. And here we are a few years later, and we've got GILT, which with the GILT app and MasterCard, and now actually with the GILT gold portal for wealth managers, you can buy gold in any amount, tiny fractions of a gram up to millions of dollars of gold. That gold is allocated, it's real, you own it, it's legally yours. There's no unallocated involved. There's nothing that gets in the way between you and your ownership of that gold. That's very important. And you can save it, of course. You can spend it with the GILT MasterCard and the super stealth, but not so stealth at this conference, solid gold debit card, invite only. You can send it to other GILT holders as long as they've got GILT accounts. Anywhere in the world that you can do that, except in the US, whilst we try and get clarity on the SEC rules, which, as you all know, tend to move like the shifting sands of the beach and the tide. So we'll hopefully be bringing that to you soon. Yeah, it's multi-currency as well in most other parts of the world. But really, what it is to bring you security, to bring unprecedented liquidity to gold, to protect you from inflation, to protect you from all these awful bank runs. Security, 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 liquidity, protect you from that inflation. So we've now, fast forward, we've got a couple of 100,000 users on the platform. We've got tons of gold on the platform. We're growing very fast. You can imagine the last couple of months was busy for our team. So please excuse the customer services team if they've not been at their perfect 4.7 Trustpilot score ratings this last few days. But we're backed by some wonderful investors as well. Sibanye-Stillwater, who are one of the biggest producers of precious metals and battery metals in the world. Sprott, you might have heard of if you're into gold. The Tokyo Commodities Exchange, and people like high net worth individuals like Sir Peter Michael. But of course, the most important people that make for GILT are you. I mean, how many of you have GILT accounts out there? You are what makes GILT great, and you are the reason why I get up every morning. But why should all these big institutional investors have an ownership of GILT? So actually, as of about 30 minutes ago, we haven't even announced it yet, but we've decided to give a limited allocation of share ownership if you want to buy shares in GILT. If you're an accredited investor, unfortunately, we can't give it to everybody because of SEC rules. You can buy shares in GILT. So go to our website. There's a link on the top called Invest. I don't know how long it's going to be there. I don't know how long this is going to last. But please go and take a look if you're interested. But thank you to all of our GILT clients. At the end of the day, I want to take this opportunity to meet you, to thank you, to learn from you.
Awesome. Okay, now we're going to go around and I'm going to ask a question that each one is going to answer. And the question is, if someone had newly acquired wealth and it came to them rather quickly and they weren't all that familiar with how to manage their wealth, what is the one thing, the one most important thing that you recommend that they do?
Just take your time. Don't get in a rush. Have a plan in place and be patient. A lot of people that I see that come into a significant amount of wealth, especially lottery winners, right? Like they'll be 75 to 80% of lottery winners are bankrupt within 3 to 5 years, and they don't have the resources, they don't have the team around them, they don't know how to manage their money or allocate money to produce income. So sit down, have a plan in place for what you're going to do with that money before it happens, and then also make sure you've prepared and put the professionals around you that you need for that event.
Very good. That's very good advice. Assuming that the ascension to wealth is coming from some sort of income, not a gift, then you should set aside money for taxes. You should set aside, if it's something that, like XRP, you've been holding it for over a year, you want to set aside maybe 20%. If it's income from a different source, you would set aside a higher amount, maybe 25 or 30%. This is so important, and this is the one thing, if you only know one thing you walk away from this conference about, one thing about taxes, is that when you trade one cryptocurrency for another cryptocurrency, like XRP for XLM, that is a taxable event. A lot of people think that you're only taxed when you go to cash. Well, you are taxed then, but crypto to crypto is a taxable event, and you are taxed on the gain that you experience from over the purchase price, and it's at your tax rate is, you want to set aside 20 to 30% for that. And when I say set it aside, you pay taxes at the end of the year on your gain. It's the net gain, because not everything is a gain. Some have some losses, but we're looking to have to pay that out. When you set it aside, you should either make estimated payments to the IRS or at least keep it in fiat. I had a client last year who made a lot of money, and he owed $1 million, but he wanted to see, but he was making a lot of interest, leaving it in a particular stable coin. He's making a lot of interest, more than the IRS was charging for late payment. And so he did that until his taxes were ready. And then when his taxes were ready, it turns out the stable coin he chose was Luna. And
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Needless to say, he had to come up with another $1 million, and it wasn't pleasant. So don't gamble with your tax money, all right? The government wants it. Now, you need to know the IRS has very strong evidence to suggest that between 50 to 80% of all crypto owners are not reporting their income on their tax return. That's a massive amount of non-compliance. The IRS commissioner said it was $1 trillion he could bring in if Congress would only give him some more money. They gave him 80 million. Half of that is for enforcement. And it's coming after, and primarily, he said, we'd be going after crypto investors. So the IRS is revving up their machine. They're slow. I've talked to them, but they're very focused. So the best thing you can do about taxes is to pay them and set aside some money on that. So,
Good advice.
I would add one thing. The wealthiest people in this country live in California and New York, and these are the highest tax states. So the mere fact that you're taxed generally does not stop wealthy people from becoming wealthier. So just to keep that in mind, right?
They need to call you when it happens, right?
Yes, definitely.
All right. Well, one thing I know is that many people have their heart set on something that they want to spend the money on when this event happens. They have a house that they have their heart set on, or they have a Lambo, or something else. And so I just encourage people to take as much time to think about the replenishment of your assets as you are thinking about spending your assets, because the unfortunate statistic is that many people do end up spending a lot of their newfound wealth and not keeping it. And in order to keep it, you need to have a plan to replenish it. So you need to have some investments that are going to work for you, that are going to provide either passive income or income dividends, things like that, that are going to be replenishing the money and not just have all the money go to be spent or gifted to people, and basically it's all gone through your fingers. So in order to maintain it, we really want to think about how you're going to replenish your wealth by an asset allocation model, how you're going to be diversified, how you're going to basically have income sources that are going to bring money back to you so that it's not just going all out one way. Okay? Thank you.
So the first thing you need to do when you become enormously rich, when either the switch flips or the buyback happens. So first thing you gotta do is nothing. Nothing has to happen right away. Be patient with it. But here's the other thing I want everyone in here to understand is you're all holding XRP. You're all already rich right now. You are. So, what should you be doing right now since you're already rich? And it's not about when XRP is $589,000. I hope you today is in the room so they can do another tabloid about that. But when it gets there, the way that you handle your money right now, if you can't handle $1,000, you can't handle $1 billion. All right, so I highly encourage everyone to go out and read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, read Killing Sacred Cows, educate yourselves, and prepare, because you are right now already rich.
Well, I don't think I can do it with one word. Can I have two? Perspective and humility. Perspective, I think, is important because I think you need to look at history, you need to look at the macro and what's going on there. I mean, everything's happened before. It might be applied into a different context, but of course, for those who are young enough, you might think this is the first bank run. Of course, they've happened before. They continue to happen by design. They have no money in the banks. We've had inflation before. Interest rates now are not high. They're kind of normal. We've been in a normal place for the last few years. Technology revolutions have happened throughout history. How do they affect the economy? How do they disrupt things? And the other thing is humility, because I'm sure you've worked very hard to get this new wealth that we're talking about here. But let's not forget that you've also had a gale force wind behind you. You've had, I think, since 2008, $8 trillion printed. I mean, it's the most gigantic amount of money printing that's ever happened. So don't think that you're necessarily as clever as you think you are, because you've been swimming with the tide. And now, of course, that gale is in your face. And I don't think we're going to have anything like the same circumstances that we've had over the last 20 years. You're swimming now against the tide. So I think perspective and humility are important.
I like that. All right, now we're going to take the opposite side of that. What's the one thing you definitely want to avoid?
Well, so I'm just going to piggyback on what you said. I see a lot of people that, and you should do this, write down your goals and dreams and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, and you're going to get the nice things, but maybe defer that a little bit. Try to buy assets or businesses or put your money to work somewhere that will allow you to take the dividends or the rental income or the income off that business and pay for the lifestyle and the assets that you want to acquire. So as an example, you want the Lambo, right? I don't think everybody in here wants a Lambo, but just as an example.
I do.
So you're looking at $2,500, $3,000 a month between insurance and the payment and all those things. Why don't you go take $250,000 and buy a car wash? And then you're able to use the income off the car wash that you purchased to pay and finance the vehicle. And maybe you got to wait 6 months, okay, to save up the down payment, whatever else. So just defer that out. Make sure that you get your money into assets that are going to produce income for you, so that those assets will continue to appreciate in value, produce income, and you can pay for your lifestyle.
Sound advice?
Well, I agree with everything that's being said here. Let me tell you, on this Monday, I spent the day in the U.S. tax court. It was meeting here in Las Vegas. And I listened to a trial. It's kind of a strange trial in that it was between a husband and a wife. The husband was a physician, had developed a medical device that he and his colleagues had sold the company, and he had a windfall of $20 million. He fashioned himself as being an incredible medical entrepreneur, and that he was going to start more companies and more money was going to come in. When they had this windfall, they started to spend money. They bought some additional houses. They They moved to New York City. They got an apartment to rent in Manhattan for $20,000 a month. They started sending their kids to a private school in Brooklyn. And they just started, and the wife, as it turns out, she had 300 pairs of shoes. It didn't take too many years before this money was exhausted. The husband, who was the financial one, he didn't pay his taxes, which is what got him into trouble and into the court. And then as the marriage fell apart, he was trying to force her to be responsible for half of the tax debts that he didn't pay. They've already gotten divorced at this time, and he's financially wiped out. And their marriage is just at each other's necks, and the kids, whom they adopted 4 children, were now pawns in this whole drama, all because he didn't follow the advice that he just heard from Jake. Don't let that be you.
One of the things that we hear from many professional athletes is that they aren't able to keep their wealth. And sometimes that comes from family members asking for funds or them being generous and wanting to give and provide things for family members or friends. And I think that can be a dangerous, slippery slope if we're just gifting money to people without any kind of a requirement of what they might want to do. What wealthy people do, the way they gift money, is they put a little bit of maybe control on it. So they'll say, I'll give you money, but here's money for a house. I'll give you money, but here's money for your college education. I'll give you money, but here's money for, to start your law practice or your medical practice. These kinds of things can be more helpful to people than just gifting them money. Because gifting them money, it tends to end up in a trip or a car, or they can get into trouble. They can get into gambling or worse. And if they're young people, they can quit their job and have too much time on their hands and really get into trouble. So you want to really think about the gifting that you're doing with people and not just arbitrarily hand out money thinking you're being generous and it's, you're being a nice person, but really think about the purpose that you want that money to have, the good that it can do in their life, and then create the legal controls around that so that that gets done.
What I want to say is very similar to what Linda just said, and I'll kind of add some context to this. So some of you know I was a combat medic in PSYOPs, and we'd deploy to Southeast Asia, and what we would usually do is we'd bring health care to the Philippines or to Palau or Thailand and those types of things. And what generally ended up happening is we would come in and we'd do dental extractions and root canals and things like that to provide a local populace. And instead of actually getting the care they needed and going out to a dentist in their local community, they would wait until the Americans came again next year. And it ended up hurting them. And what we were really doing is we were buying them, not building them. So when you have that wealth and you have those family members coming to you and asking you for money to go and get a house, to go and get a car, whatever it is, the most valuable thing you have to give them is the knowledge, wisdom, and experience of how you got to where you are. I would say don't give them anything, but I'm a little bit of a prune that way. But so just understand that no amount of money is going to fix their problems. They have to learn how you got there.
So you've built your business up, you've sold it, or you've backed the right horse, you've made a lot of money. So presumably investing is going to be easy. But of course, how many people have we seen who've lost 40% of their money in the first 2 years, or all of it? You've got to treat it like a business. You've got to do the analysis. You've got to look at the fundamentals, and that often takes a lot of pulling the veil back from what's been told to you. And a lot of you, I think most of you here, have had the veil pulled away. So you're at an advantage to most people. But I think the most important thing is don't become arrogant. Don't lose your values. Don't lose your friends and your family because they are much more important than your money.
I want to piggyback on the second half of that conversation there. So this is what I do when I help you formalize a family office. This model was pioneered by the Rockefellers, and the Vanderbilts didn't do it. I don't know if you've ever looked into those two families. Rockefellers still have their money. Vanderbilt's gone by the third generation. So when I work with somebody, if you come into more than $20 million, that's about the time you'd want to start formalizing a family office. And we'll go through your mission statement, your core values. We document and set up a family constitution and a family compass, and then we put governance and controls around the money, who has access, constraints, maybe there's age, maybe there's other requirements that are involved with that. And I want to talk about, people are going to come ask you. So I'm sure people in the room have told other people about XRP. I've told a lot of people about XRP. And they're going to know. When this event happens, I'm going to have people coming out of the woodwork. And the way that I want to mitigate that without any animosity from that other person when I tell them no is you formalize a financial committee. So you'll sit on that. You might have some other family members. You'll have other professionals. And that way, when they come to you and they ask, you say, yes, I would love to invest in your business or whatever you've got going on. You just need to put together a business pro forma or a prospectus, and you can present it to our board. We have standards for investment. And then, as long as it meets those standards and criteria, we would love to give you the money. And then it's not you telling them no. It's you have a system and a process in place. So yeah, I just love the second half of that conversation because, and the other thing I was going to mention is, so you have a family bank. This has been done by a lot of family offices, and they'll issue loans to family members, okay? And maybe that's at a 0% interest rate. What I'm gonna do for my boy, he's 6, he'll get to sit in on all the meetings and look at all the investments and learn how we structure deals, what type of deals we invest in from the time he's 10 to 20 years old, okay? And at that point, he can go out and source deals, but when he brings them back, he's gonna have to put skin in the game. So he's going to have to come up with 20% down, and we'll give him an 80% loan at 0% for a property or a business. Maybe it's less than that for education. He may have a whole life insurance policy that I'm sure we'll get into that you can draw against. There's a lot of different ways to set this up. But yeah, I really wanted to piggyback on the second half of that conversation and drive home the importance of it.
So we're all XRP holders. We're all maybe heavy in one asset. Is there a way that we can diversify or a suggestion about diversification that you might have, anyone on the panel might have about just...
So I look at people that become wealthy like a tree, okay? I put this out on a video and I had a lot of good response for it, so I'll share it here. The trunk is the vertical that you made your wealth in, okay? So for us, that'll be an investment. But for a lot of people, that's their business or something else. And when you get to the top of the tree, you've grown a lot in that vertical, then you diversify across a large swath of the economy. Billionaires, they diversify across, they might have treasuries and cash, they might have bonds and annuities, and you have a whole allocation model that I'd love for you to talk about. Gold, obviously, is a fantastic hedge. You might have stocks and bonds. Private investment makes up the majority of most billionaires' portfolio. And then, of course, you've got real estate. So once you get there, just make sure, again, you surround yourself with people that are competent in each one of those areas, or find a good financial advisor, CPA, CIO, if you have a family office, that's going to be able to walk you through those types of investments and pull back the veil and make sure you're doing your due diligence on them.
One thing I would say is that this whole cycle that we're going through really reminds me of the late 90s with the technology cycle and the internet. Something I wrote about in my book is that we're going through this whole new technology, and we have many new companies that some of which are going to be very successful, many of which are going to go by the wayside. As Brad Garlinghouse said himself, of the 20,000 cryptos out there, You know, maybe 100 will survive, but many will not. And the important thing, I think, is to realize that there comes a point where diversification is really important. I can't tell you how many people back in 1999 and 2000, right at the peak of the bubble, were all in their particular tech company, and they had the tech stock with that company, and they just had seen that stock escalate like crazy, and they didn't want to sell any of it. They didn't want to diversify any of it because they were 100% sure that it was still going to go up that much and more in the next few years. And of course, just the opposite happened, and they lost a lot of their fortune. So, you know, I believe in cycles, and that we are going through a similar cycle where we're going to have some sort of probably a really massive bubble at some point, maybe later this decade. I don't think it's right now, but maybe later this decade. And when and if that occurs, just realize that there is going to come a time where you will want to diversify and not just look at past history and say, well, it's done so well, it's going to continue to do so well, because everything does move in cycles. And as we know, crypto has about 3 years up, 1 year down. We just went through that down year. So be prepared that we're probably going to see another 3 years up, 1 year down, and then maybe another, and maybe that'll be the peak of the cycle. But just be aware that everything does move in cycles, and we are going to see some sort of massive crazy bubble in this whole thing, I think. That's going to surprise all of us, but hopefully we'll be diversified and have protected our wealth so that we can keep it for many, many years and generations to come.
I think if we look at the vision for cryptocurrency, and we look at, for instance, the vision for GILT, you know, it was to protect us from loss, you know, from bank runs, from this crazy fractional reserve banking system, which, by the way, is a lot worse than it was in 2008, because in 2008, you had to, first of all, work out and just, you know, get the information into your mind that there might be a problem with the bank. That we didn't have Twitter. We didn't have Di and Brad to tell us what was going on with the world. And so that would take time. Then you'd actually have to physically drive down to the bank. Then you'd have to queue up. Then eventually, bank runs took days. Bank runs now happen in 1 hour. $85 billion can be withdrawn in 1 hour because we all have banking apps. All 150 regional banks in the US could, I've got to be careful what I'm saying. I think it's against the law to talk about bank runs in this country.
Well, as long as you're not inciting bank
But anyway,
runs.
Systemic risk within the system, inflation, ultimately to, you know, free ourselves from the tyranny of central banks. And really, you know, I've banned the word investment when it comes to gold with GILT, because I don't see gold as an investment. I just see gold as a store of value. It's just money. Everything else is credit. And cryptocurrencies are obviously making great ways at working towards an alternative as well. But it's just money. The problem, of course, with fiat currencies is it's losing so much money all the time that we have to speculate. That's what I see investment as. We have to speculate in order to just stay still, never mind grow our wealth. And so I think a lot of people, when it comes to wealth, are interested in protecting that. So I think you've got to also look at the fundamentals and think about, what am I doing here? Which part of my money am I putting into sound money, a sound store of wealth, which isn't an investment? And how much am I investing to try and grow because you're judging this against fiat currencies, so they're becoming worthless. Like I always say, the gold price didn't go up yet, you know, this last few weeks. It's the fiat currencies became worth less. You know, gold hasn't changed. And I think actually gold, even if you don't own it, gold is a really interesting kind of guide to tell you what's going on in the world. You know, it's kind of, you know, imagine every morning you woke up and you had your thermometer on the wall and it, you know, told you the temperature. But imagine in the middle of the night someone was getting up and changing the gauge. You have no way to be able to judge really what the temperature was, except how you felt. So I think gold can play that part, but understand what you're doing with investment. You're putting it at risk. That's fair enough. You know, you invest in great entrepreneurs, great businesses, great projects. There's nothing wrong with that, but understand that and try and understand what risk is to you.
I think while we're talking about gold too, Jason, people might be interested to hear your comparison of gold and Bitcoin. What do you think about that comparison?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said before, I think both Bitcoin and, well, we're all trying to fight the same problem. We're all trying to solve the same problem. Gold, of course, its nature wasn't created by human beings. It's not defined by human beings. It never has been. It's created when two neutron stars collide. It's God's money, some would say. It's immutable, which is a beautiful word. Kind of defines that it cannot be changed. There's no way. It's impossible to be changed. And the whole planet tried to change it. It couldn't change. You know, and cryptocurrencies obviously are saying, okay, so how do we model some of those behaviors, but by giving it other qualities as well, programmability and interactivity and things like that. And I applaud everybody in the crypto community. In fact, you know, GILT is building it's not just a retail, you know, gold-based alternative to a bank account. It's not just a convenient way to buy gold or spend it. What we're building is a global gold-based alternative to the financial system. Can you imagine that? A whole planet where the ownership of gold is moving across the planet and also through different systems. And so, for instance, we're working on a project to build bridges to XRP and to other cryptocurrencies. Because, you know, right now, I mean, if you look at when Russia invaded Ukraine, you know, equities and cryptocurrencies plummeted in price, and gold went up. Why was that? Well, that's because gold is what I call a risk-off asset. Yeah, there's no risk. It's no credit involved in it, and it's totally proven. Whereas, of course, cryptocurrencies and equities have still got a bit more to prove. So I think that it's going to be a long time, but I think it might happen where Bitcoin catches up and starts to move from a risk-on asset towards a risk-off asset. But I wish them all the luck in the world, but I think it's going to take a bit longer. And what I really can't stand is people trying to say that Bitcoin is gold 2.0. It is not gold 2.0, okay? Why have a copy when you can have the real thing? Let's be clear what these different assets are, what the benefits are. You know, GILT isn't perfect. There's things that you can't do with GILT that you can do within the cryptocurrency world, and vice versa. Let's understand the fundamentals. Let's be honest about them. And actually, what I'm really refreshed about is how Brad kind of cuts through all the bull and often is very good at trying to give us clarity on things like that. Thank you, Brad.
I think XRP is gold 2.0.
I'd like to just raise a topic for you to think about if you're coming into a massive ascension of wealth that's derived from crypto investments. You need to be very aware that there is continual tightening of the anti-money laundering laws that surround the financial systems. I have a client who had $5 million in a particular bank in deposits, and he wanted to move $1 million that he had cashed out on Coinbase and move it into his bank account. They turned down the transaction and they mailed him his $5 million in a check. Why? Because banks, we're now at a point where banks are much more concerned about transfers in from crypto sources. It's any transfer in from a source that's defined as a crypto source is automatically a high-risk transaction. Why are the AML laws so important to banks? Well, there is actually a chief compliance officer in the bank who will go to jail if they don't follow the rules. There are executives that will go to jail. The chief risk officer has the ability to go over the head of the CEO in a bank. This is how serious it is. And banks will not keep you as a client if they're at all scared of you coming in. In fact, a recent study showed that for crypto transfer in, the bank is going to spend roughly 6 hours on average researching and validating whether or not your transfer is clean. So many of you are holding your XRP assets on a ledger or some device like that. And so when we look at the trail of it, when you bring it in to cash it out from Coinbase, it's not good enough that the cash out is coming from Coinbase. They want to know beyond that, where did these coins come from? Were they clean? What was the source of handling? What was the source of funds? Is there anything illicit that was happening? So you need to really be thinking And you need to work with your bank to let them know, I have these investments, I plan on cashing them out in a month, I wanted to make you know about it, I'm going to bring it in $1 million from Coinbase to your account. Banks, here's an interesting thing. The law prohibits the bankers from asking you any questions about your transfer. It's called, you cannot tip off, is what it's called. So you have to give them all the information ahead of time before you do the transfer. So I'm saying this because you might find yourself in a situation when all the cryptos go up together, people are all moving cash into their bank accounts. Banks are going to suddenly have a very low appetite for crypto transfers. So you need to work with your banker. You might need to diversify your bank collection. You might want to make sure you have bank accounts at banks that are more crypto friendly, particularly more national banks. You just do not assume that your bank is going to accept that cash transfer out of Coinbase or Uphold.
And probably like some kind of an audit trail, like if you could prove where the money came from originally and then it went into a crypto and then it sat in your Zum wallet or something, and then if you could show the trail, we
do offer a service for our members where you give us your wallet address and we'll run a health check on it. We'll tell you how much of it's coming from illicit sources. Because that's the thing that the IRS, or not the IRS doesn't care, but the banks are going to care about.
Right.
And you want to know how clean your coins are, the wallets are, before you take it in to start to liquidate it. You want to, because if you don't do that, they're not going to want to have it.
It's a really, really good point. I mean, we've all seen it as in a small transaction as less than $10,000, where the bank is asking where are the funds coming from. I mean, it's crazy. Or if you want to take money out of the bank, they give you a hard time if it's more than a few $1,000s, and they don't have the cash in the branches. So this is getting more and more.
It's massive. I mean, people, illicit, bad actors are laundering money in yield farms and liquidity pools. You might think, it's safe. I put my clean coins in this liquidity pool, only to find out that the Lazarus group has laundered $800 million through the liquidity pools. You get your coins back, and 30% of them are from illicit sources, child exploitation, hacks, certain black market activities. And all of a sudden, what are you going to do with those coins? No one's going to want those coins. So that's your concern, is the hygiene of your coins. Once they're tainted, it's almost impossible to get the taint off the coins. You really have to create multiple hops before that coin starts to look clean again. So I'm just warning you, many of us trade we're trading with anonymous partners. You have no idea where your coins came from, unless you got it straight from the source. So this is a big factor, and if you do liquidate, I recommend you liquidate large chunks. That's what regional banks manager told me. Do it big, don't do it small. Do it big so there's only one approval transaction, not 20, because 20 looks like you're laundering. So I'm just a word to the wise on that one.
I think that's great advice to get them involved before you're bringing the money into the bank too. That is very important.
Massive, it's massive.
Yeah.
What if you take loans against your crypto?
Well, who's providing the cash?
Let's say, Nexo. Yeah, you got Nexo.
Nexo's a crypto source. That automatically is a red flag right there.
So my question here, let's say I'm working on something where we're able to roll your digital currency into a whole life insurance policy, and it's backed by the digital currency. And then traditional fiduciaries would give you the loan against that life insurance policy, just like an infinite banking model.
Well, typically, what they do with AML analysis is they're going to say, why did you do that? Why wouldn't you just take it straight? You ran it through a couple different, the more hops you do, that starts to raise questions. You might understand it, but a more simple, risk advisor may not understand those things. Ultimately, it's who's given us, some cash is landing in your bank account. Where'd that come from? It came from Nexo. Well, we might be able to get a clean document from Nexo saying this is a pure loan. That we might be able to do. But the appetite for banks is going up. And we saw the IRS, the FDIC closed several banks recently. All of them had significant exposure to cryptocurrency. All right, so that message was not missed on all the other banks. I mean, that's kind of a regulatory, don't go that route, especially for enforcement purposes. So most of us have only worked on the on-ramp side of exchanges. We've not really worked on the off-ramp side. And so just make sure you have lots of options.
What are the tax implications of a loan against your cryptocurrency?
A loan is not taxable because it has to be paid back. Should that loan get closed so that all of a sudden it's forced on you, then that would be a forced liquidation, and that would be considered a taxable distribution at that time.
But any loans against your collateral, which is what the wealthy do, by the way,
right,
is not taxable income.
Loans are not taxed. Loans are not taxable. If you're loaning against yourself, you have to charge yourself a fair interest rate. And pay that back. There has to be genuine sincerity of actually paying back the loan. If you do a loan, but there's no paybacks, there's no documentation to show that it was a valid loan, that the interest rate was not reasonable, that there was a lax attitude towards the administration of the loan, these all be badges that this was really a distribution and it would be taxable and not really a genuine loan.
Fantastic.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
We have some more
I
time.
think
What are
our
we doing,
time
Ray?
is up, right?
Hey, I encourage everyone to go to Crypto Tax Audit and start defending yourself.
Take a question?
We're coming up with a new price point of $19 a month for monitoring yourself. I think it's a smart thing to do, to know what the IRS is watching you. You need to watch the IRS.
I guess we're running through.
Yeah. They're saying no questions because we're not set up for questions with microphones
There's
right
the
now.
internet audience as well, so they can't hear you asking the questions as well.
If you have questions, I think we're all going to run through our contact information, and you're more than welcome to reach out that way. So, social media platforms is Beyond Broke. You can check out my website at digitalfamilyoffice.io. We also have a mastermind, which is beyondbrokemastermind.com.
Clinton Donnelly, you can reach me out on my website. You can schedule a consultation off the contact list, and we can have a private consultation about your situation. And I'll be around here today if if you'll buy me a beer.
With gold,
I'm not cheap.
I'll buy you a beer with gold.
That's right.
That sounded
I got
cheap.
standards.
There you go. Buy with the Glint card. You can find me at lindapjones.com and also on Apple, iPod, Be Wealthy and Smart podcast, which also goes over to YouTube, so you can find me on the YouTube channel as well.
You can find me on Twitter anytime. I'm always there, at Real Reaper CEO. Otherwise, our primary website is reaper.financial. We also have arc.institute and block.foundation.
So I've had a really bad work-life balance for the last 6 or 7 years, and this explains probably why I only started getting involved in Twitter a few weeks ago, really. So I've got a grand total of about 710 followers on Twitter, but please do come and follow me at Jason Cousins. I'd love to start getting my personal opinions out there about what's going on as well. But in terms of Glint as well, glintpay.com, go and check it out. I'd love you all to become customers and get on your own personal gold standard.
Thank you.